Welcome to the Nearly Enlightened podcast, a high vibe toolbox designed to help you connect to your body, mind, and spirit. I am your host, Gianna Giruso, and I'm here to share tools, conversations, and insights to help you on your journey of self discovery. This podcast is all about exploring what it means to live a conscious, connected, and nearly enlightened life because the truth is, the answers aren't outside of us, they're already within. Let's dive in. I am joined today by Marissa. If you're unfamiliar with her, she's been on the podcast before. Go check out that other episode. And today, sorry guys, we're talking about Taylor Swift again.
Oh my goddess, I love it. Okay, so as many of you know, my specialty is that I specialize in relationships and intimacy. So most of the work that I do in my life is supporting people in their lower chakras and with issues around money, sex, power, and the intimate and relationship to all of those. And so I'm coming on here to talk about Taylor Swift's reclamation of her lower chakras and of her relationship to her money, her sex, and her power, and the way that this has created a archetype in a cultural sense for us to be able to understand kind of the mythos of how we heal through archetypes through the lens of Taylor Swift and her cultural impact.
I think the biggest thing for me when talking about it through this lens is like, I think I said it on the episode before this when we talked about this episode, we like broke it down song by song, but you can see that she really feels safe in her relationship. And that comes through so deeply with each and every song. And I think that that was why she was able to kind of like reclaim this part of herself. And maybe even you think about her more like racy albums like Reputation or maybe like Midnights. And it's even got like a different vibe than that. Like she is really reclaiming and not even reclaiming, but maybe even just stepping into this side of herself for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those albums were very like if like specifically around sex and sexuality, those albums were really her starting to allow herself to be a woman, allow herself to step into sexuality as a part of her that is one of her powers. Like as women, our sex is our power to create life. It's why we are biologically able to get pregnant. Like it's quite literally the function and the flow. And so I think in those albums, she's starting to reclaim that part of herself. Reputation and Midnights are, especially Midnights is happening after all of the Scooter Braun ownership, the owned by the patriarchal system. If we're looking at her like, the current album of the song Father Figure and Life of a Showgirl, which could very much allude to that time in her life when she was owned by men while simultaneously her stepping into the role of her own father figure in her own life. Um, but those like albums before, she's really exploring sexuality through the lens of reclaiming eros in herself and in her own life. Whereas now we go to the song Wood and Life of a Showgirl, and there's this really secure attachment to the extent that she can even talk about her partner's dick, if that's what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Where it's like their love and security is so strong and so open. They're not hiding any parts of themselves. Um, and their pleasure is something that is so part of their experience. And like I even think that there's a very like tantric element to that song.
Ooh, I love that. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the lyrics is your love is the key that opens my thighs. And when we're talking about the idea of Tantra, the lingam is the pillar of light. In Sanskrit, lingam is the word for the male genitalia, the male penis. It's called pillar of light is the translation. And the feminine yoni is the portal that creates everything, right? The portal of life in which all exists from. And so when we really start to get into tantric union, the man penetrates the woman with his light into the portal that creates everything, but it's her heart, the breasts, which are protruding outward, that opens his heart. And so his love or his wood is the key that opens her thighs. That's what's opening her up to the channel of light that goes all the ways up to her heart, opening her to this heart opening experience that is very much the theme of Life of a Showgirl.
That's really interesting. I didn't know the Sanskrit translations.
Yeah, I mean, I just very much saw it as like, oh, the thighs are this like portal of initiation, and having the key to that is what is awakening them to this really sacred union experience if they're having that. And I don't know that they are. Like I said, these are all just I'm using them
Theories.
as a cultural, yeah, theories, even just using them as kind of a cultural example for these deeper concepts that we can relate to from an outside perspective.
Yes, I love hearing this because this is very different than how we talked about it in the previous episode. And like if you told former me that I would have had two podcast episodes on Taylor Swift, and actually this is the third of the podcast history, I like would not believe you. But I do think that there was so much in this album to talk about. And like you said, through a cultural perspective or even a societal perspective, um, it's just very interesting to look at. And I thought it was very interesting to look at it through the lens of like, look where she was in the tortured poets department, and then where she is now. It's like it's almost like two completely different people, and it really speaks to the ebbs and flows of life. Like you can go through these things that rock your world, but actually like it puts you in better alignment, and it's the catalyst for the shift. Like you have to take the good with the bad, or however you want to frame it, because like nothing is good or bad, it just is. But like if she didn't have those low lows, like she probably wouldn't be appreciating this high that she's in right now.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, when I think about, um, the she's almost like she's almost gone through Anana's descent, right? Like if we think of Anana, the goddess who goes through this descent, from heaven into the underworld, she strips down everything she is to then put back on everything she's becoming. And it's she loses everything, losing the rights to her masters, loses all of her power, and like in a way loses a big chunk of potential money that she had worked everything for, right? Um, she loses her reputation, hence the album Reputation. She loses like her credibility. And then she goes through in Tortured Poets Department, she loses her pleasure, she loses her love. She loses, I can do it with a broken heart. Like I can keep going, but I'm in the underworld. Like there is no more of an underworld album than Tortured Poets Department. And so now we shift into Life of a Showgirl, and she has risen from the ashes. She has ascended back into her power, and she has reclaimed her identity as who she wants to be and who she is becoming. And, I think even like when we go into Tortured Poets Department, we have the Albatross, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, but Daddy, I Love Him. And all of these really start to weave the transcendence of like, I'm still going to choose love even though I'm in hell.
The Alchemy and the Prophecy are two songs that's a great example of that as well. It's like in the Prophecy, I think she talks about like wanting to undo these things that have kind of been imparted on her. And it kind of mirrors what I was saying in the episode before this, where I have like shied away from using psychics, tarot cards, and things of that kind of nature, because I think it's like a prophecy, right? And then once it's out there, it kind of your brain is looking to fulfill that. So like once it's imprinted on the mind, like your brain is looking to fulfill that prophecy. And like I think it's powerful that she was talking about like wanting to undo these things, and she talks about it in this album too, about um like not believing in marriage, but that was a lie. And like all of these things that were kind of like imparted on her that she is kind of undoing. And I think that that's really like beautiful and relatable.
1,000%. I think that she goes exactly like she's using her vulnerability as power. Um, and I think that she's starting to shift her image and her narrative, even through Easter eggs, through symbolism, through like connection with fans to reflect this new level of like leadership in her life where she has reclaimed where she really has reclaimed her money, sex, and power. And the way that when we do that, we get to create everything we want. Right. And I think that's kind of like the song Wish List is she's like, all right, I've created all these other things, but this is what I really want. And this is now what I'm really leaning into now. Um, but it did take me going into the underworld and stripping everything down and having to, get back the rights of my masters, which she did, right? Like she stayed true to that.
Talk about a
And
reclamation of power.
right, reclamation of full power and money. Like she and money is these are intrinsically interwoven. Nobody wants to talk about money because we love to just like shame it, but it's the same as our other chakras. And so, or the other part of our root chakra. And so she reclaims her masters, which at that point she had surrendered to. And I think that's a really beautiful moment in her trajectory to realize that she had just completely let go of even reclaiming that. And it was through the surrendering to it and the choosing to still reclaim her power through a different lens, being like, all right, I can't reclaim my masters. They've been sold to Sony. I don't know if I'm ever going to. So I will just re-record all of my albums in order to reclaim my power. And that's the weaving of surrendering but taking action, right? She's not just letting it go and giving up, but she's still taking action to return her power to self. And then this is the first album that was recorded since she reclaimed her masters. Like so there's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
yeah, so there's also this like extra power that kind of comes in. And when we think of the song Opal Light, um,
One of my faves.
hands down one of my faves. And it's like dancing through the lightning strikes. And I think that that is very much, her journey with the Eras tour and going through like a huge breakup. Like her relationship with Joe Alwyn was a 6-year relationship that we really don't fully understand. And we can make a lot of projections and assumptions and talk about all the reasons he wasn't right for her and all of that. But I think at the end of the day, there's 6 years of love and loss and heartbreak and tenderness and experiences that we have no idea what they were about. And she had to just keep literally dancing through the lightning strikes. And I think that was also symbolic of when she chose to re-record her masters. She took that same type of mindset on, all right, I'm just going to re-record this and keep going. And I don't care how much slack I get. I don't care how much people come after me. And then in the Eras tour, she's like, it's a different level of feminine leadership because she has applied that skill to another area of her life. So now she can show up still in her magnetism, still in her power, because she's reclaimed power in a different way just through the re-recording. And she can continue to do a international world tour in the midst of breaking up with her partner of 6 years. Like insanity.
Insanity. And dropping an album. It was like breakup, album drop, tour.
Yeah, all of the things. Because I think they broke up like mid-tour, which is like insane. Or at least that's when it became
Public
news,
knowledge.
public knowledge. Yeah. And I feel like when another like reclaiming of herself is really the power of her voice and life of a showgirl. I don't know if you saw the movie, but I totally saw the movie.
I didn't
Uh,
see it. Danielle, who was on the episode with me, the last episode, she went to go see it before we recorded, but I haven't seen it.
okay, I loved it. So in the song Father Figure, she talks about how she relates to both characters. And I think that this really gives us an insight into how, while we could say this song might be about this person or this song might be about this person, I think she's a lot more intelligent than that. And I think that at any given moment, some of the songs are about multiple characters and experiences in her life that have woven into a storytelling. And Folklore and Evermore were really the foundational times when she started to reclaim her voice and her narrative. And that actually happened through Reputation. She started to reclaim her narrative. And then she moves into Folklore and Evermore not long after and really starts to reclaim storytelling. And this continues to like evolve into her archetype as the high priestess and the empress, and power not through domination but through embodied creation. And then Father Figure comes in and she's sort of playing with both of those dynamics and relating to both of those characters. um and I think like even Eldest Daughter is a complete storytelling.
That
Say
song hits so hard for me. Like some of the things and themes, like it's something that I've been talking a lot about. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast too. Like, I have half siblings, so I'm not technically the oldest daughter, but I do have a lot of oldest daughter energy. And in my parents' union, I am the oldest daughter, and the oldest child. And there is like an extra responsibility on the oldest because we're like paving the path first and we're just trying to like figure things out. And like in the end, she says something about like the youngest child too. That's let me see if I can get the lyric because it just kind of reminds me of like the family dynamic. Sorry while I look this up.
No, you're so fine. I'm excited to hear what you have to say because I am like in the middle on the birth order. So I'm the youngest of four from my parents' first marriage. And then when they divorced, I became the oldest at my dad's house a lot of times, but the middle child when everyone was together. So it's just a very like interesting upbringing with birth order.
That's interesting because that's kind of like me. My dad was married before and had three kids, and then married my mom and had three kids. So technically, I'm kind of like right in the middle. But a lot of oldest energy. But it says like every youngest child felt they were raised up in the wilds, but now you're home. And I guess it wasn't really the case for my sister. She was probably more sheltered than all of us. But even the line, every eldest daughter was the first lamb led to slaughter, so we all dressed up as wolves. Like that line just really hit because, especially coming from like a patriarchal Italian family, I took on a lot of masculine traits and still sometimes like that's something that like comes up for me. And I think that that's kind of what she's talking about, like dressing up as wolves. Like we did that because we took on these masculine traits to kind of like cope and get by.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. And I think that it's even the way that I often see the eldest daughter become the protector, right? So, like, the eldest daughter often takes on this wolf-like energy of protection, which is traditionally known or like often known as like a masculine trait, like you were saying. And um, I think that her, you know, I think that that's something that has shifted in her so much is she's always had this like softness and this feminine part of herself through a lot of her music, but really beginning to allow her erotic energy to be part of the stage, part of the performance, right? Um, she's starting to both let go of some of the masculine traits that she has while also let go is a really strong word. I would say integrate them. Like the song Father Figure is her stepping into her inner masculine And what we really want to be as people is in inner sacred union and then an inner union in our relationship, right? And so from a career perspective, like Life of a Showgirl has so many of these traits of like you have to be the boss. Father figure has these traits of that. Um, but then simultaneously, like Wood has this very hyper feminine expression of talking about like the entire experience. I would say Wood is even an archetype of linking the axis mundi, the place where heaven and earth meet, which is where priestesses ascend and descend between what realms. And so she's sort of saying that sex is a portal, Eros is a spiritual awakening. There's this union of opposites, and lover as the gateway to the divine. Um, and so I think that when we look at these lens of like masculine and feminine, she's allowing her masculine energy to come in because everyone's always called her mother. And then she creates this song called Father Figure, really as a reclamation of wholeness of herself so that she can be so blissed out in the feminine in her relationship and in her marriage, which is so obvious, right? Like in this relationship in particular, Travis Kelsey is this giant, very masculine man in so many ways and dynamics. And yet he's also a huge squishy teddy bear. Like his feminine heart is very online. He's very sweet. He's always like playing with his nieces and all of that. And so I think that there's this really beautiful way that whether she's related to these concepts or not, she has she is archetypally embodying this union. Both
Yes,
interpersonally, yeah.
I think you're right. You're definitely right about the integration part because you can see the songs that are more masculine leaning, like you said, like father figure, even eldest daughter, actually romantic, canceled, brings in that like protective archetype. But then she has this super soft feminine side in Wish List, in Honey. Even she talks about it in Life of a Showgirl, being like as soft as a kitten and like maybe
Yeah.
not being able to handle the limelight. And so it's this is like a total reclamation of like who she is and stepping into a whole new era of like divine power.
Absolutely. It's like, what's going to happen next, right? That's what I really see with this because she has now, through all of these different albums from the beginning, like I could go back to like Fearless Speak Now eras, like the Maiden Innocence and the Romantic Idealism. Red in 1989 is Awakening to Desire, Awakening to Fame, Awakening to like wanting more power, really. Reputation is like the shadow, the integration, the rebirth. We have Folklore and Evermore. It's like really descent into introspection, the underworld awakening the voice. And then now Midnight's Tortured Poets and Life of a Showgirl, we have sovereignty, we have self-possession, we have erotic and creative power. She has now reclaimed her money, her sex, and her power. And so at this point, she is outside of everything, right? She is no longer bound in a sense to anything. So what her creative process will be is going to be really interesting. And this really goes into what can happen in our own lives when we choose to reclaim our money, our sex, and our power, and the ways that we find true sovereignty and freedom through that path.
Boom. I think that this is something that a lot of us are, like I think I talked about it on the last episode and like I've been kind of candid about it since 2023, but this has been like a true transformation period for me. And like when TTPD was coming out, I was also going through a breakup after like being together for 4 years, almost 5 years. And so I could relate to what she was going through. And that's really what made me a fan because before that, if you asked me, I would have told you I fucking hated Taylor Swift. And then I PTPD happened and I was like, oh my God, is she reading from my journal? Like, what the fuck? And I was like, okay, she's actually like a brilliant writer. And when you look at it like beyond the music through poetry. Like you said, she's an extremely intelligent person. Like the lyrics that come together, you have to be an extremely intelligent person to write the poetry that she is writing. Like it is unreal. So that was like my first, like, okay, I think I love her. And then watching the Journey Through the Eras tour of like going through this dark night of the soul, but still having to show up and kind of bring your business to the next level, I could really relate to that because I'm coming back to the East Coast. I'm like rebuilding and I have to show up every single day with like this broken heart when I really don't want to leave bed. I want to just like cry all day long. And so it really helped to like push me through. And I think that that's where expansion comes from, right? Like you can see it in other people's lives. And I know like everyone probably personally has a story that is very similar. And then this album was kind of like the hope album, right? Like, okay, she went through this deep, dark night of the soul, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And even in this album, like things aren't perfect. It's not like there's some actually really sad like Ruin the Friendship is, if you really listen to it, it's like deeply sad and moving. And even when you're in these high highs of life, like there's still this like there's still this spectrum of human emotions. And I think it's just like beautifully honored. And I love this album. I've listened to it like 8 times now. It's so catchy and so just like brilliantly thought out, and to see the process and to see the spectrum of TTPD through Showgirl, Life of a Showgirl, like I just think it just gives hope. Like, you know, she's been through these extremely low lows and come out on the other side, and now like she is in the most probably expansive era that she's going to be in. And I can kind of relate to that. So with this coming out, like in the last month, I just opened up a yoga studio. I just partnered with a friend, and came into like a business partnership with a friend. And I'm stepping into this new archetype. So I am kind of reclaiming these parts of myself too. And I think that that's why I was like so deeply moved by this album when a lot of people were like very underwhelmed. I'm like, are we listening to the same thing?
Yeah, and I think that really goes to show like just where someone's at in their phase of life and their relationship to what they're going through. If someone is still in a TTBD out like time in their life, like this album would be super triggering because they're not in the reclamation, they're still in the underworld. And so it's hard to really connect and to resonate. And so much of her music is about relational resonance. Um, and like I love what you said, but I do think that there's so many ways that if people get more into the storytelling and less into like the black and white of the lyrics, they can really apply it to myself, also to themselves. Side note, congratulations on opening the yoga studio. I'm going to be in Providence this month and I'm so excited to come.
Oh my gosh, I'm
Um,
so excited to hear that. I can't wait to see you in person. It's been like literally like 8 years.
I know, so long, but we're gonna make something happen. We'll talk all the details after the podcast. But
Yes, for
everyone
sure.
should visit. Yeah, so when, I love, you can call me honey if you want because I'm the one you want. Winter green kiss all mine. You give it a different meaning because you mean it when you talk. And this is a line in Honey where she's really talking about the way that probably for her, if this is true, maybe Travis Kelsey calls her honey, and it's like shifted the relationship of being able to receive these types of words and compliments because they're not holding that um like the devalued way that like people can say it where it's like sarcastic and putting down of someone. But I also love the way that if we were to apply this as we are both the masculine and feminine in our own life, what are the ways that we can give different meanings to ourselves by how we self-talk? And I love kind of playing in those two roles. And the reason like this album has been so impactful for me is because I'm launching my first program, Your Bliss is Your Birthright, a 10-week course. And it's really all about this reclamation of your bliss as your birthright and reclaiming your joy and your pleasure as your state of being. And I think, Taylor Swift really talks about that even in the little like the life of a showgirl little movie that she made or album release that she made. She talks about, opals are man-made gems. And so she's like, you have to create your happiness. You have to be the one who creates and chooses it. And so this album has been like such an anthem because so much of Your Bliss is Your Birthright was birthed out of me feeling grief and pleasure, which is the first thing I ever shared about on the Nearly Enlightened podcast. And how that journey of expanding to hold both, which I think is what Taylor Swift was going through in the Eras Tour and Tortured Poets department, especially the first leg of the Eras Tour when she's breaking up with Joe mid-tour. She's writing the Tortured Poets department album and she's touring around the world. She's having some of the most beautiful, blissful experiences of her life on tour and simultaneously the deepest heartbreak. And so she's really like balming the grief through these pleasurable experiences that she's creating and choosing her joy. And that is something that has been the biggest medicine in my own life is like doing it with a broken heart, choosing my joy, choosing my bliss, dancing through the lightning strikes, like, and then like, what are the ways that I'm self-talking to myself? What are the ways that I'm becoming my own milk and honey and truly like, but you touch my face, redefine all those blues. Like, love when Eric does that for me. It's been a huge part of my journey, but a huge catalyst to that was me redefining it for myself as well. And my inner masculine being the one to do that. And I learned that through my husband's love and then my own love. And it's just really powerful. So
And I think you can see it here too, because like you said, at the beginning of the Eras tour, she's going through this breakup. She's having to show up every single night and put on the show of her life. And then all of a sudden, this guy that is like seemingly not her type comes through and pursues her like she has never been pursued before. And I think that deep down, like a lot of us, that's like, or that's what the feminine is searching for, is like that consistent pursuing. And like you saw it with him before he even knew her, and it was in the headlines, like the friendship bracelet thing, and he was like going to the Eras tour basically to put himself in front of her and be like, we're meant to be together. And I remember listening to the Toast podcast, which is like my guilty pleasure. I love the Toast podcast. I listen to it every single day. And when this first started to break, they're huge Taylor Swift fans. And they were like, there ain't no fucking way that she is going to date this man. Like, he's not her type. He's the complete opposite of her. Like, she is not into that, like, macho, masculine, whatever. And I just think it's so funny to see how it played out. And like, I just think it's so beautiful that he pursued her and kept being consistent. And like, that is, I think, deep down what we all want. I'm speaking for myself, of course, but yeah, like I just think that's so beautiful.
1,000%. And I think it's the way that he has continued. I talk about this a lot where it's like the ways that different men's personalities will show up in pursuing someone are going to look so different. And the original meeting of them has this like really beautiful story, and everyone's story could be different. It could be someone that you've been friends with for a little while and you're just kind of like orbiting each other's circle or something. Um, but it's really the way that he's continued to pursue her in relationship. That is what matters the most. Um, like you were saying, like he had this like, almost like a 1980s like guy with a boombox vibe where he's
Yeah.
like, I want you, you know. But he instead makes a friendship bracelet and shows up on the show and or shows up at the show and everything. And finds a way to get the friendship bracelet to her, and she likely doesn't really know who he is that much. Um,
which is
and
fucking amazing. Like, because like here you see like this macho guy who it's like an athlete, a jock, like everyone knows him. He's like, Mr. America, and she is just like, who are you again?
right, and
Like
I think that
deeply
just goes,
humbling.
oh, deeply humbling. And I think that goes to show the difference of worlds that they live in, right? Like athletes are 1,000% like known for their field, for their like their they're known for their lane most of the time, right? Like, and a lot of artists and musicians are. Taylor Swift, however, has transcended into a cultural icon globally in the same way that Michael Jackson, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, the Beatles, even Michael Jordan from the Bulls, if we want to look at an athlete who transcended from their realm
Their
of
craft.
yeah, their craft into an entire cultural archetype and icon for society on a global scale, which is a completely different level than most people play at in their life. And
Right. And I
so,
think she talks about it in this album. I forget where it is, but she talks about being like basically the legacy that she's leaving behind. Like she could die tomorrow, but like her name will live on forever.
oh, 1,000%. And is that an Elizabeth Taylor?
It might be.
I feel like I know what you're talking about.
Let me see if I
Uh,
can find it. Also in Elizabeth Taylor, when she's talking about Portofino, it just makes me wonder what happened there.
I know. I'm just so curious about so many things. Like, and I think, actually romantic is so funny and such a good way to handle heat in your life. And I know people get into their head and they're like, it's about this musician or this relationship. And I actually don't know if it's about any of those things or if it's just about a story. But I think that it's such, especially as women in business and in leadership at times we're inevitably going to have people who don't like us. We're inevitably going to have people who, you know, for one reason or another, we trigger something in them. And so like they have a whole narrative going on behind the scenes about us that we don't know. Um, and we have like two ways of responding to it. And I think so much of this album is around our choice and our response. Like we can choose to stay in the underworld or we can choose to opalite through life. We can choose to get criticism and be, someone talk shit about us and it ruin our reputation and ruin our expression, or we can be like, it's actually sweet. Um,
You're obsessed with me. That's I talked about this on the episode before because it's something I'm experiencing right now, and you can let it be a mirror, you could let it be a reflection, or like you can deeply know yourself and know that like it's other people's projections and it's not going to sway you.
oh, 1,000%. Um,
It wasn't in Elizabeth Taylor, so I have to find where I got that from. I know it was one of these songs. I should start making notes like you did.
I only made a few notes, admittedly, just ones that ones that landed with like the theme of my life and creation and where I'm going next. And just I think the reclamation of her as an archetype. And I think so often the journey of working with archetypes is about getting out of our ego and into our higher self. And so the way that she has done this and continues to sort of present these themes and concepts is really profound.
Yeah, her artistry, like if music wasn't a thing, like she would be a great poet of our time.
Oh, 1,000%.
I am trying to find what song it's in. This is going to bother me. And as soon as we wrap this episode, I'm going to listen to the album again and I'm going to be like, of course it was that song.
That's how it always happens. Um, well, we all have the power to create our own legacy. And I think whether it's on the scale of Taylor Swift, where, she is creating this global legacy and will 1,000% be remembered in history. Um, or even if it's, you know, in our community and in our lives and people around us, like we create a legacy through our personhood and um through the people that we relate to. And I think that that's like one of the superpowers.
I agree. I agree. So you were talking about your new program launching. Talk a little bit more about that. When do doors open? If people are interested, how do they find out more?
So yeah, speaking of a legacy,
Yeah.
I am launching my first program. So one of the things that I did is I took everything that I had learned in my personal life and moving through grief and pleasure, um, and everything that I had learned that clients needed in like one-on-one sessions and somatic immersions. And I created a course called Your Bliss is Your Birthright. And so this is a 10-week course. It's virtually most of the sessions are virtual. There is the option to do two of them in person for local people. For people that are not local, the option is I will have a smaller group for out of staters to connect and to get that more individualized touch. So it's going to be 9 sessions, and every single week we're going into deeper states of self-love, somatic sexology, self-tantric practices, and one of the things that I talk about, it's like, yes, this is for single women who are really wanting to prepare their vessel to have secure attachment and secure love and secure relationship to self before entering into partnership, which Taylor Swift is such an incredible mirror of because um I mean, she even has a song about self-pleasure. I think it's on Midnights, if I remember correctly. But she has continuously shown up for herself and shown up for her own self-care and self-love. And that has created such a secure relationship that she has going forward. And then it's also for the women who are in relationship to really continue to like the more that we love ourselves, the more that we accept ourselves, the deeper we're in authenticity, the more that fuels the relationship itself. And when we're filling up on our own energy, we're able to stay in our own creation and follow our own passions, which Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce mirror through having their own respective, really deep passions. Um,
And I think
and
it's so like we see it in Hollywood relationships a lot. Like they were too busy to make it work. And like I just think that that is such a destructive and honestly gross narrative because look, these are like he's a multiple Super Bowl winner. She is like the world's biggest pop star. She was on a world tour. He was in the middle of a season and they made it work. Like that, so I think that that narrative of being too busy or being on like, I don't know, it just like it doesn't sit well with me.
Oh, 1,000%. There's always time to show up to love for yourself, and there's always time to show up to love for your partner. And yeah, so Your Bliss is Your Birthright is open. It is an early bird for the next until I think October 16th. So it's 333. Prices will raise to 444. Um, and in that it's, 9 recorded virtual sessions. We're going to be going through all the things. Details are on my website, of course, and my Instagram. And it really is the like, let's learn to dance to the lightning strikes. Let's open our heart chakras to things that we never even knew were possible. Let's, become the bridge to heaven and earth and really start to repattern everything in ourselves. And for the women who are like, I've done so much of this, I'm there. It's like, okay, and you can have even more happiness and you can go even further, which is, I think, what so much of the life of the showgirl is. And like, and especially the song Wish List, is it's like she has done the reclamation and yet she still desires more. And this is the core principle of the feminine, is we desire for the sake of desire. And when we allow ourselves to connect to that and to the true desires of our heart, which in the song Wish List, she's like, all of these other people's desires, I love them and they're amazing, but I just want this simple home life with a couple babies at this point. Like, I've already done the other things. My other desires are there. This is where I'm at. And bringing people into the truth of what their heart wants, which I think is so part of this whole journey. And that comes through, knowing the heart and allowing these different beliefs and ideas to change, like she had happen, and um, changing our fate of Ophelia.
I think it is such an important message to especially millennials because I think we were the one generation that was really, I used this word last episode too, we were brainwashed into believing like not to put the relationship first, not to put motherhood first. Like we were imparted to like this hustle culture and to like be the boss ass bitch, and that's great and fine, but like this album is saying, like Taylor's saying, she's done the boss bitch thing and now she's ready to be like in her soft girl era. And I think that it's important for us to realize that like you can have both. You can have both.
Exactly, like we get to have it all. And I think that that's what this next paradigm is before there was this paradigm where women could only be wives and mothers. And they were like, oh, I have no sense of identity. I have no sense of who I am. And so it pendulum swung to this hustle culture. And then it was like, oh, I have to be the wife and the mother and the business owner and this and this and this and this. But I also like, but it's like pushing these other things aside, or like to the extent that they're so masculine that they're not a wife and they're not a mother. And now it's like this new paradigm's opening up where it's like, actually, we get to have it all and we get to boss up, settle down. Like we get to do both. Um,
Boss up,
and
settle down.
so
I think we just found the title of this episode.
I love that. Yes, exactly. So I'm so excited for folks to really do that. That's so much of what your bliss is your birthright is it's expanding to be able to hold everything. It's doing it through nervous system practices, somatic practices, mindful erotic practice to really be able to push past our edge of resistance, to push past the beliefs that are not only in the mind, but in the cells of the fascia, and be able to hold more so that we can create more of what we want in our life and have our desires come true.
I love that. If people are curious about this, I'll link the your sign up in the show notes. But if they're looking to find you, where can everyone find you?
They can find me on my Instagram, I.am.Marissa Rose. They can find me on my website, IamMarissaRose.com. And the program starts October 26th. So I'm excited for folks to dive in.
Oh my gosh. And what better way than to start Scorpio season? I feel like that's very like Scorpio work.
1,000%. We're really like going into Scorpio season and then doing this work of reclaiming our money, sex, and power and stepping into a new portal. The last day is the winter solstice. Um,
Wow.
so it's really designed to be this full immersion with the cycles.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I loved chatting with you. And I always love talking like Taylor Swift lyrics and analyzing and relating it to, because I think she is, even though she's like this mega star, she is so relatable.
1,000%. She's a powerful storyteller. And when we can start to look at her work and even her life through the lens of an archetype, we can really find a lot of power in what she's doing.
Yes, because she shows up authentically through all of these things. She's not putting on that social media filter of like everything's perfect. I'm a billionaire and life just is always like rainbows and sunshine. It's like, okay, you got to take the good with the bad. Sometimes things are a little bit uncomfortable and you have to like know that it's all temporary.
1,000%. It's so exciting.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of the Nearly Enlightened podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, I would love it if you shared it, left a review, or you can even reach out to me and let me know your thoughts. And if you're looking for more ways to deepen your connection to body, mind, and spirit, check out my Meditate to Elevate guided meditation portal or visit nearlyenlightened.com for more resources. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and remember the answers already lie within.